Thank you, Bela, for for the kind introduction, and thank you for having me doing this presentation in this virtual way. For me, it's the first time that I'm addressing an audience that I don't see, and also I'm not sure if you see me or only my presentation. But what I do know is that you saw the clip of Constance Dullard, who initiated and is our artist that in collaboration for the project Art Host. And the Art Host project is what I wanted to introduce to you briefly. I skipped the intro about LIMA. I hope you all know LIMA. For sure, LIMA has a long tradition in preserving and archiving media art and digital art, starting with distribution. And as working as an agency for artists, we are in the middle of production and presentation, and also have to keep all these works available and accessible over time. But not only available and accessible, but also to be presented and achieved in a good way. So in that sense, we take care within distribution also for the proper presentation of works over time. Within preservation, we work for 40 institutions and initiatives. They outsource the maintenance of their media artworks to us, basically Dutch institutions like the main museums, contemporary art museums in the Netherlands, but also the governmental collection, but also private collectors come to us. We take care of their media artworks and we provide them with knowledge, training, presentation, suggestions, requirements, and so on. And part of the whole knowledge exchange is our symposium, Transformation Digital Art. As you see on this slide, is within a month, the 19th and 20th of March. We have a strong research program in media art and digital art archiving and preservation. And actually, all our projects are collaborative projects, either with institutions or with artists. And we do so because it's a rather new field. It's still in development, and it will be in development for a long time, since there are so many things to sort out. So digital preservation is still rather new. Although we are working on it for 30 years, it still has a lot of challenges. To face these challenges, cooperation is key, because we all only have a limited amount of resources, a limited amount of knowledge, and the best way to get a step further is to develop that together and share it in that way. So this is how we work, and that's in our DNA. So Art Host is one of these projects. You saw the clip, so basically you know what it's about. It's an ongoing research project in collaboration with and initiated by Constance Dullard. And it investigates how to deal with contemporary artworks that depend on a dynamic digital technology, and in particular, web-based artworks. So, and of course, central to the research is the question how these works can be stored, documented, and kept accessible for the longer term. I use this project also to give you a practical inside view in how LIMA approaches these research projects. So how do we go along in such a project? If we talk about web archiving, of course, a lot of cultural heritage institutions, archives, and libraries are dealing with that. So the first thing we do is look at how they do it. The other side that we are researching is how our colleague institutions, museums, and research institutions are dealing with this particular topic. And of course, we also ask some artists and collect some interesting artworks to use as case studies. So in this case, we had 20 case studies, and many of them were the works of Constant Duller. In web archiving, if we could start there, if you look at web archiving in cultural heritage institutions, harvesting is key, or better, remote harvesting. So the most common web archiving techniques uses web crawlers to automate the process of collecting web pages. And of course, web pages could include images, design, downloadable documents, and so on. And they are retrieved from the web server using specific software. So this harvester of this software approaches these websites like a user and sees it at the front, so on the client side. So these services include, for instance, the Wayback Machine. We looked at these different tools, for instance, Web Recorder or Heritrix, and had our concerns about how they were structured and how we could use them. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Web Recorder or other crawlers or recorders. They give us often static representation. You have to make regular crawls, so to speak, to monitor the differences. And at the other hand, you also have to understand the web page you are crawling, because it has a certain structure. And to follow that structure, you first need to understand. And when you're looking at artistic websites, this structure is often very mixed and very dynamic. Look at yodi.org with such a crawler, and it doesn't help a lot. So web crawlers are existing, and they're very useful to get an inside view and to make documentation of the websites. And of course, they are developing. But at the moment that we were doing the research, we thought there is already a lot of work being done there. This is not exactly how we think about it. Let's do it in another way. Let's go for the server side and collect all the files we need, collect all the different documentation, the source code, and store that, have discussions with the artist, document that in a proper way, and making scenarios how to emulate it and how to document it and how to present that in the future. The project, as you know, is called ArtHost. And we researched how we could build up a technical system that could host many artworks without harming one website if things are changing, so to speak. So this is actually a virtual server, and in this server are 100 other virtual servers, all independent from each other. And this is also why we use this kernel-based virtual machines. I'm not sure if you get excited about this, but our colleagues get, and that's also why the slide is called like that. You see here some of the websites and how they are stored. So this is taken care of, and in a good way. This is also what we can take care of. We store it, we make disk images, we prepare the structures, we prepare the documentation, and monitor the changes of the work and the environment. As I said, we do that at server side, and for the accessing this works over time with a diversity of browsers. Rhizome and others are researching emulation of these browsers, so we cooperate with them. And so we integrate, as far as possible, their structure into the ArtHouse structure. There's a report about this. If you're interested, let me know. I'll speed up a little bit, I think. Documentation is on a very basic, regular way. We make these documentation reports, as I said. We make video artist interviews and video documentation. And that's done in a particular way. It's called the Dulles-Czakowski method. There are also reports online to explore. I think Annette is in the audience, so maybe she, if there are questions, she can talk about that. No, the current investigation is the workflow for this emulations and availability of both browsers. And we're using new case studies and new collaborations with Rhizome and the network of digital infrastructures in the Netherlands. Another ongoing topic is, of course, the monitoring of the change and the storing of these dynamic sites. We don't have solutions for that, but we are testing the more challenging websites, like the website Mouchette by Martine Nedam, and we're working on different scenarios. One of the scenarios is where is ArtHouse placed and what is the role of the artists and the role of LIMA in this case, and the role of the gallery and the owner of the work in how to maintain work. Then this kind of maps are made. Maybe we have time for one question about this, but let's see. To sum up, the most difficult in the whole project, of course, it's a technical challenge, but I think the most difficult in the project is to develop conceptual way scenarios for the emulation and documentation, having in mind that one replaces probably the other soon or on the long term, and how to deal with that. The other part is, of course, capturing change, or maybe not the capturing, but the interpretation of the change. We can capture it. It brings us a lot of data, but that does not necessarily bring us the right information. So we have to interpret that, and now are looking for ways with artificial intelligence to see how to do that. Of course, now we have this service, it's all up and running, and there are now already, I think, 30 or 35 works included. But to interest the collectors and the collections in that service is very challenging. Actually, we can document and we do our best, but we cannot guarantee, of course, how long everything will be in place. because what happened in the meantime, sorry for this, I don't know what happened in the meantime, but what we didn't think of in the beginning is that the domain names we have to take care of, because this is actually a crucial point, because if you forget to pay the domain name, then lots of things will go wrong, as you can understand. We tested rather simple works, we thought, but they were tweaking with the Google browser, and they, at certain point, the Google was aware of it and named it, put them on the blacklist. So that also means that you cannot send an email with the title of these artworks with Google Gmail or other Google devices. Very recent, ongoing at the moment, updates for PHP. At the same time, we also found a lot of new tools and testing a lot of new tools. For instance, Power Map to test the structures of the website. So far, so good. I hope it was of any help, of any inspiration. And Bela, maybe you can share my email. If people have questions, I can address them online, because I think the time is...
Yes, sure. We will spread your contact according to your and of course the visitor's demand. Thank you very much, Gaby.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your presentation and all of your attention.
Thank you.